We have a sense of grounding through Earth. We sit in the Earth, we connect with the Earth, we connect with its stability. Earth is static, it's stable, it's forever. I was walking through the forest, silent forest, near the Grand Canyon. My footfalls were padding on the leaf mold of the floor. Sound was sort of like a blanket around me in the trees. And I walked for maybe 3 or 4 hours. And then eventually, I came out. I could feel the air was changing, something was happening. And I came out onto the edge of this cliff, looking out over the painted desert, northeast, where the Grand Canyon approaches its deepest part behind me. I saw this amazing cliff, and I thought, that was an idea. When I got to it, I thought, yes, this is possible. I can sleep the night here. And I sat there on this perch and I cooked my dinner. And gradually the sun went down behind me. The shadows crept out from behind cliff below, slowly reached out across the desert, out away from me, out towards the crack which was the Grand Canyon. It was like a bit of the earth had been torn apart. There was just this rent. And out of the blackness of the bottom, shadows slowly crept up the sides of the canyon. At last the sun picked out the cliffs. And then finally, with the last crescendo, it all went. It was dark. I went to sleep on my rock. It was kind of hard. And I woke up a few times and moved over. And every time I could see the stars, I moved a little bit across the sky. And I was aware of all this happening around me. And then one time I woke, there was this thin orange line on the horizon looking out straight ahead of me. And gradually that thin line coalesced into an orange ball right behind Navajo Mountain. A sacred mountain to the Navajo people. They'd never allowed anybody to climb it. This was the summer solstice, the longest day of summer. And here I was watching the sunrise behind this sacred mountain. And I sat for ages and just watched and watched. And I thought, this is so beautiful. But what is this thing we call beauty? Why does it move me? Why is it important to me? So I started to think about the history of humans. Looking back into that history, where did it come from? Humans began living for maybe 2.5 million years as early hominids in the forests of Africa. We were surrounded by the forest. We lived and breathed the forest. The forest was an enveloping greenness all around us. We had no sense of time. We were totally attuned to the world around us, to its sounds, the sounds of the birds and the rustle of the wind. We were totally subjectively involved in this forest. I think that time, that long time, 2.5 million years, compared to the 200,000 years of Homo sapiens, has had an effect on us. It's made us much more receptive to forests. We're actually in some way locked up into the feeling of the forest. It's been proven by university research that if you live near trees, you can see trees, you're more socially minded, you're more relaxed, you're more community minded. If you can't, if you live in a city and all you see are tower blocks and city streets, you're more obsessed with yourself, with your fortune, with your status. It's been proven that trees have a physical effect on our health. People with severe trauma recovering from, say, cancer operations are prescribed to walk in the forest. It's been proven they get better quicker. There are physical oils in the air which make them heal, but there's also this sense of this envelopingness, which I'm sure psychologically harks back to that period when we lived in the forests. Then two things happened. We developed tool use, we developed language, both at the same time. both in the same part of the left hemisphere of our brains. Both are about manipulation and control of the environment to our advantage. So suddenly, this enveloping greenness which had been all around us as forest became objectified. We named a tree. By naming it, we separated ourselves from it. There was the tree, here was me, in between a space. These two things, tool use and language, were the first two wedges that separated us from nature. But that fact of our history also separated us from evolution. Unlike other species, we're no longer at the whim of evolution, the chance mutation of genes. We controlled our evolution. There is no other species on this planet that can live in every single habitat, from the polar ice caps to the tropical rainforest to the Sahara Desert. By our adaptation, we've learned to do all of those. We've learned to use tools for our advantage, and we've used language to our advantage. So we've redirected evolution to our benefit. The first Homo sapiens emerged out of Africa about 100,000 years ago. 60,000 years ago, there was a massive volcanic eruption in Indonesia, and it wiped out virtually all life right across southern Asia and the Middle East. A few remaining Homo sapiens retreated back into Africa. They think maybe 600, 1,000 females are the original humans from which we are all descended. There is more genetic diversity in neighboring tribes of chimpanzees in a forest in Africa than there are in the entire human race. We're all exactly the same, and I think that's quite an important fact. 60,000 years ago, a second wave of much better equipped Homo sapiens emerged out of Africa into the Middle East and then divided into two strands. One went up into Europe and one went along the south coast of Asia, across the land bridge, Papua New Guinea, and into Australia. Those that went up into Europe arrived there 45,000, maybe 50,000 years ago, and it was a relatively mild climate. Within a few thousand years, it went into a cycle of very quickly changing ice ages, and it suddenly became very hard to live there. At that moment, when survival was critical to those humans, we started making art, which became these cave paintings, as in Cholet in the south of France. Anthropologists reckon that maybe it was because art was a social activity. It gave us a sense of purpose and cohesion as a group, which enabled us to survive better. We survive mostly because we're a social species, supporting each other, not a lone individual. And art was part of that sense of community, of sharing and communicating. Now, if I said to you, from memory, in a dark cave, and there a cave bear lurking down there, maybe, might eat you. Just with a burning juniper bush, from memory, and a charcoal stick, draw a line. I couldn't do that. But that's what these guys did. And look how beautifully they've modeled it. They've smudged the inside of the form of the head to give it three-dimensional aspect. Just that simple action enhances the drawing immeasurably. They sometimes drew these heads around a mound in the rock, which when they lit it with lights made it look three-dimensional, made it look even more real. This is the swimming reindeer at Montreux. 13,000 years ago this was carved. It's closer to our time today than it is to the Cholet cave painting 30,000 years ago. Anthropologists have recreated this carving using stone tools. It took 400 hours. Would we today voluntarily give up 400 hours to create an art piece being supported by our peers, by our fellow people around us in a time of crisis when it was hard to live, when it was barely possible to get enough food to survive? Yet they did this. They were prepared to sacrifice this for their art. It was important to them. So maybe why art was because of the community thing. Maybe there's more to it than that. Why animals? Almost every single artwork, whether it's three-dimensional or drawn on cave walls, almost every single one is an animal. I I think I can give my theories of why that is from my own experience. This time I was hiking in Utah, and I'd been walking for a couple of days, and I tend to sometimes go off trail and just find my way through the bush where I want to be. And at the end of the day, I was in a clearing underneath a tree. I cooked my dinner and I was sitting there drinking a cup of tea. And it was beautifully quiet. It was evening, the wind had died down, the light was beginning to fade. It was that lovely, peaceful time of the day when you were tired and rested. And then suddenly there was this almighty crashing, and the hackles on my neck went up, and I was, what's that? And it was a mule deer, well, not these ones, but one like this, two of them, just standing over here. And I hissed and froze, and she froze, and we looked at each other, and we had this fantastic eye contact for what seemed like forever. And then slowly, she moved off, came back. And then quietly, with high stepping movement through the brush, vanished. And I remember that, absolutely, because my adrenaline was up and I was scared initially and excited. And it was seared in my brain in a way a normal experience wouldn't have been. And more than that, I'm now sharing it with you because it was such an amazing experience. I think that's what these people were doing. They had these intense experiences with animals. And don't forget that in their time, there were very few humans and there were thousands of animals. And they wanted to share these experiences. But it was also their connection to nature. And maybe in that connection, they sensed something. They sensed some sense of loss, that we're not quite the same as these animals. They know what to eat instinctively. They don't seem to die of eating a poisoned mushroom. I don't know if I can eat that. It killed that other guy. Maybe this is one of those, or maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know when to migrate. Maybe the snows will come early this year, or maybe we should go now. We don't know. So we had doubt. And we realized that there was a difference between us and the animals. And we were trying to work out that difference. We went back into the womb of the earth with these torches and in these caves. We created these drawings, trying to work through this trauma. There's an anthropologist who was also a poet called Clayton Eshelman, and he coined the beautiful phrase, postcards of nostalgia. That these are in some way a nostalgic ode to something which we felt we'd lost. And because we're social creatures, we create art, we communicate, we've done it ever since, for 40,000, 50,000 years since then, in every single culture, in every single part of the globe. I think this sense of separation, this dichotomy, came back again in the Romantic era. Their objectivity allowed them to experience and write about nature, but it separated them from it at the same time. They wanted to be a part of it, but being a part of it and immersed in it, they didn't have that objectivity. They needed to be artists to write about it. This was the dilemma of the Romantic artists. So then Homo sapiens settled down into a long period of living as hunter-gatherers, epitomized by this beautiful carving from northern Germany of half lion, half man figure carved out of a bone. Hunter-gatherers need to know the animal. They didn't have long-range rifles like we do today. They had to get close. They had to stalk the animal for days to understand it, its movements, its fears, where it goes, its habits. Learn to be it. They had to live it. They became the animal. They wore its skins, they ate its flesh, they used its bones for carving and its sinews for ropes. They absolutely wound up the animal. Inuit of today say you cannot carve an animal if you haven't hunted it. The hunter is implicitly bound up with the creature. And in that world, nature will provide if you are respectful of it. Today, hunter-gatherer societies that are still living, we learn from them, we can extrapolate back. We're pretty sure that the hunter-gatherers of this period were also like that. That they never ever stored food. They didn't need to. Nature will provide. But you have to have the right attitude. If you go out there with the wrong attitude, they won't give themselves up to you. Hunter-gatherers were egalitarian. They had no kings, no rulers, no homes, nothing possessions except a few tools they carried with them as they moved. They practiced geronticide and probably infanticide to keep their population down. They were very lean, very healthy. They had no concept of nature. They only had understanding individual relationships with animals and plants. The idea of an overall thing of nature didn't exist to them. That wasn't their world. There was no, in that world of what we call nature, there was no hoarding, there was no exploitation, so they didn't do that. It wasn't a model which they saw around them, so they lived like other creatures in a pretty good balance with the world. Then we started farming. And those wild, free creatures who we draw on the walls of caves are now domesticated and tamed, and no longer look you in the eye with the same spirit. Anthropologists have found that early farming communities of the Neolithic period began in Turkey 10,000 years ago onwards, were far less healthy than hunter-gatherers. The skeletons were smaller, showed signs of malnutrition in their teeth and their bones. Their close proximity with animals had picked up diseases we hadn't had before, and living in tight communities, in villages and towns, they passed those diseases around more quickly. There were times of famine, when the crops failed and they had no food. They didn't know how to hunt anymore. Farming was the third wedge that separated us from the natural world. And it leads today to this ghastly depiction of animals, these cartoon figures that we use to sell the food we eat. The roly-poly happy pig showing you a pig hamburger, a pork hamburger for you to eat, as if nature would do that. Or, conversely, the non-domesticated animals, the ones we haven't been able to tame, who remain wild in spirit like sharks and wolves, are demonized and turned into these horrific ogres, which they're not. My son swims with sharks. You can go onto YouTube, you can see heaps of videos of free divers playing with sharks, rubbing their noses, caressing them, and the sharks love it, they come back for more. They are not aggressive. These are myths that turn them into ogres. And then that makes it okay for the guys to go out from China to go shark fishing for the fins and leaving the fish alive in the water to sink and drown. It's okay because we turn them into ogres. And it's led to this globalization of food where you buy a single biscuit from the shop, you don't know what's in it, where it's come from. There's bits from all over the world, some maybe dubious practices or chemicals added, little traces of things that you don't know what's gone into it. We no longer know anything about the food we buy in packets or where it's come from. They might put the ingredients on it, but not the processes, not the things that are done to it. Globalization has taken over and separated us even more from food, but food comes from nature. We need food to live. So now dependent on the weather, the farmers looked up to the sky. They couldn't afford to lose their crops, so they propitiated the sky gods to bring good weather. So the priests arrived into the society, and long not far behind them the kings and the king priests. And so they became ruled by religion, ruled by kings. Religion is the fourth wedge that separated us from the natural world. The story of Genesis begins with farmers. For 50,000 years of human history, living before that as hunter-gatherers, is forgotten, is ignored. Humans started as farmers. That's the myth we've been told. In Genesis, God gave man dominion over the earth, the rocks, the plants, and everything that creepeth thereon. Well, I think we failed in that dominion. We haven't looked after them. We've exploited them to our ends, to the point now where it's hurting the planet. And in the last couple of thousand years of human history, and essentially we've gone through these cycles of influence of romantic right hemisphere influence times, or more rational left hemisphere influence times. The early Greek period was a flowering of the arts, the right hemisphere. The late Greeks, it was philosophy and science, the left hemisphere. The Renaissance, Revival of the arts based on the Greeks and the Romans was another flowering of the right hemisphere, followed by the Age of Enlightenment, the Age of Reason. Descartes, who gave us the Cartesian grid, he sat in his study on the ground floor of his Paris apartment and watched people walking past him out through the window. And he wrote about how they meant nothing to him. There were machines walking past, they did not exist for him. Everything that mattered to him was in his own brain. Today we call that schizophrenia. Then the Romantics, who worshipped nature, for whom nature was bigger than humans. The trees, the clouds in the sky are giants compared to the diminutive figures in the bottom of the painting of the castle or the bridge of the left hemisphere was modernism, following hot on the heels of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution took the beauty out of making, took it away from craftspeople. The hand of the craftsman was replaced by engineering and manufacturing. The care of the craftsman and the beauty of the craftsperson was replaced by economics and the dollar. To the point where we've got these monster ships which plough in a straight line across the oceans, irrespective of the winds and the currents, pushing this enormously inefficient bow wave in front of them with violently turbulent propellers which are also equally inefficient at the back, pumping out fumes and carbon dioxide into the exhaust to bring us oil. This is the metaphor for our times today, irrespective of the environment of the world, punching through the seas. Industrialization is the last wedge that separated us from the natural world. So while things became made by industry, by manufacturing, philosophers took the idea of beauty over into the world of the art, and they separated it out, starting with Kant and later with Schopenhauer, who wrote about contemplating the perfection of form without any worldly agenda. Any intrusion of utility or politics would ruin the point of beauty. So it's useful, it can't be beautiful. So we become connoisseurs of beauty. We observe it from a distance, we walk around them, and they are beautiful, but we walk around these artworks in the cold white cube of municipal galleries and look at them from a distance, separated from them. Meanwhile, outside, commerce gets on, making as much stuff as it possibly can, irrespective of the environment. In the 19th century, the German Rationalists tried to reduce the world into manageable facts and reduction into small components which they could control. And this is the left brain. This is the way the left brain works. It operates in a self-reflexive hall of mirrors. It thinks it knows all the answers. It has no connection to the world outside it. Within that world, it thinks it is right, and it thinks everything happens within that world. It's only through the right hemisphere that we connect to the world around us and feel the world around us. But our world has become dominated by the left hemisphere. It's tried to impose this order on the world, this grid on the world, like the grid of the 1 mile square blocks across the northwest prairies of the United States. But underneath, it's still nature. However much we close our grid, nature's still there. The element of water is sensuality. It's free-flowing. It's nothing like the solidity of land. It's eternal movement. It circles the earth. You can move around the earth on the surface of water everywhere you go. The wind is up. I take my trolley and I push my windsurfer down the trail, down to the beach, alongside a pile of white bleached logs washed up like the bones of a whale. I set my rig up. I carry my board out down the beach into the surf, waiting for a break. When the waves aren't so big, I leap up and sail out through the surf. Careful here, I've broken gear in the waves. Get out through the breaking waves. Now I'm free. Relax back into the harness, feet in the straps, let it go, and off we go. The wind's coming from the northeast. I'm heading out due east towards Table Cape. The waves leap up in front of me, the board jumps over them, dives down the surface in front and up the next. A flying fish pops out of the water alongside, its wings whirring frantically, curves, flies in a great big curving arc around ahead of me, and dives back into the water. I'm beckoned onwards. I long to carry on. I can sail on like this forever. I'm mesmerised by the rhythm and the movement, the feeling of the wind in my hands through the boom into the sail, the feeling of the sea under my feet, steering the board, manoeuvring it, rising over the waves, springing as it comes back down again. I'm totally in control. I'm the pivot point between the wind and the sea as I move across the ocean. It could go on forever. Beyond the Cape, the next bit of land is Chile. Maybe I better turn back. Lean a little bit back, onto your toes, carve the board around, at the point of balance, spin around, let the sail go, pick it up on the other side. Now I'm sailing back in towards land again. I'm sailing right into the sun, right down the line of the sun. The water is like a mirror, it's bright and flashing. I can hardly see the tops of the waves and picked out of the sun, the shadows in between. Now it's fun. Now I can ride up on the surface of a wave and surf down with it in front of it, and back up the next one and down this one. It's a totally different rhythm, a different movement. It's free, it's loose. There isn't the slamming and going into the waves. Again, I can go on forever, but the land approaches too quickly. The waves start to rise up and get bigger. I leap over the top of a big one, come down in front of it. I can hear it breaking behind me, and I can surf in, riding on the surf, heading off for the beach. Better jump off now. Don't want the fin to get stuck in the sand. Lift up the sail, carry the rig out through the surf, up the beach, back onto the grass, de-rig the sail, push it back up home again, back to exactly where I started. I love the land. I long to caress its curves, to run its hand over the folds of mountains and delve into the depths where the forest floats. But I love the sea more because it caresses me. We first saw the sea, the Pacific Sea, here, coming out of Panama Canal, heading into the Pacific Ocean. This is the bridge, the Pacific Trans-Pacific Highway, which goes from Alaska down to Chile. Not far from here, Balboa was the first European to see the Pacific and called it the Pacific Ocean. If you turn the globe, you can virtually see nothing but sea from this angle. It's 160 degrees or 9,600 miles from where we were in Panama across to the other side here. And this is where man first saw the Pacific. The first wave of early Homo sapiens came down across that land bridge through Papua New Guinea into Australia. And some settled on the edge here, and they looked out across this ocean. They were the first people to see the Pacific. Then many thousands of years later, maybe 3,000–4,000 years ago, some people started to move south out of Taiwan, hopping down across the island chain of the Philippines, and ended up again in this same area, the Bismarck Archipelago, Admiralty Islands, just north of Papua New Guinea, where they became known as the Lapita people because of the pottery they made. They lived there for a couple of thousand years, then they moved on into Samoa and Fiji. By now they were Polynesians. They paused there, and then finally they migrated throughout the Pacific, discovering virtually every single island in the Pacific. They did this before Britons could cross a river in a coracle. I think this is one of the greatest feats that humans have actually done in this planet, in the history of our race. To be able to navigate this vast ocean and find these islands in the first place and then find them again and colonize them. With no instruments, they did it entirely with their prodigious knowledge of the stars and the sky above them. They knew it so well, they knew it from memory. They had no tools with them. The things they carried, the things they taught, we've got today, of how they passed on the knowledge of navigation. But when they were out there on the sea, they had no tools. They just knew enough about these stars and their movement through the heavens, through the different times of the year, because at the same time of year, a different time of year, a different star will be above the same island. So you need not just to know the movement of the stars, but the time of year when you were sailing. They knew all this. They were able to find their way back to these islands. It's a spherical knowledge, it's a complete intuitive knowledge. It's a knowledge we can't understand in our world today of grids of longitude and latitude and cell phones. It's a knowledge that's acquired with intense learning over many years of their lives. Today people will not do this. This tool was used to teach the navigation from two islands. The one on the left to the one on the right. And it might be several days apart in relation to a third island up here, which they can't see, but they can imagine where it is. All the time they're sailing, the navigator's thinking, where's that island over here? And there are different stages along the route which are marked on this. The Polynesians had no idea of beauty. Beauty for them was not an indulgence. It was a necessary, practical, functional thing for the boats to go well. They built their boats with an innate knowledge of the seas and the ocean that came from sailing in a way that, again, we can't do, we never have. We never lived like that and understood the sea in the same way and come up with these incredible shapes that they came up with. The same person who was responsible for the karakia when they cut the tree down, for carving the tree into the waka, for taking the waka out into the oceans and making sure that the waka had the right spirit so that when they were out there, they would look after the people who were fishing and bring them home safely at the end of the voyage. The same person who carved understood the sails and understood the movement of the sea, and understood the flow of the wind over the sails and the sea over the hull and the wood over the tool. It was all intuitively stored and came out in these beautiful shapes. And maybe I'm sure they were influenced by nature, by the world around them that they saw. And again, in nature, things aren't beautiful, they just are. They've just evolved that way because that's the most efficient way for the form to work, for the fish or the bird. And that swordfish is very like that boat in the bottom there. Polynesians seem to take it beyond the functionality, into a sort of expression of exuberance or skipping over the ocean in these incredible craft, going beyond practicality and expressing something they felt about the experience. Remember that quote of Schopenhauer, something is useful, it can't be beautiful. Seriously? This is the most stunning canoe I think I've ever seen. It comes from two islands off the north coast of Papua New Guinea called Awa and Woolulu. And it's used for shark fishing. These are poor people. They have food, but they don't have much else. And yet they're prepared to spend this much time making these incredibly complex, difficult things to carve with stone tools before the Europeans came along and gave them chisels. And to join the wood into this beautiful form, I think is quite remarkable. So I made my own version of it. Not as big and not as beautiful, but I couldn't help it. It's called a toffel. And Linda can't say that. They used it for shark fishing. They used to go out at night and fish for sharks. And I asked the people in Woolulu via Facebook, why do they have these spikes? And initially I got the reply, well, we don't know. They don't make them anymore. And finally someone popped up and said, yes, I know. It's where our ancestors are when we go out there. It's scary going out at night fishing for sharks on your own. So you take your ancestors with you. They're there in those spikes. That's what they're for. So there is a reason. The Maori word for beauty is atahua. I talked to the Kamata at a marae up in my ear, and I asked them about this. And I said, what does beauty mean to you? And I said, well, it's not really intrinsic in an object like you guys believe it is. It's the relationship. When a carver who can whakapapa back to Tane, when he's kind of channeling, if you like, the spirit of Tane, God of the forests, when he carves, he makes something beautiful through his spirit. But then the carving will make other people beautiful in return, in reciprocation. It's a two-way process. If you create something beautiful, it will make other people beautiful. I love that concept. With the Kauhasha, we walked down to the cove nearby, near the marae, and they explained to me this is where we pulled up our poker when we first arrived here, many generations ago. You can see, look here, the rapa, this is where we hid it. We went off to explore. We come down here sometimes. We come here to talk to our tupuna, our ancestors. If we need them, if we need help, we'll come here and talk to them. Sometimes we see a special creature out on the sea, bird or fish, dolphin. They're important. They mean something. They're telling us there's a sign there. You might see one. Later I walked down the track to the beach. I saw a bittern, Patuku Urupu, standing in an open patch of cleared ground. Bitterns are quite secretive birds. Normally they hide in the reeds. And I think it thought it was still in the Raupo swamp, and so it stood like this with its head straight up. And we stared at each other for a long time, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and I was going to move. Eventually she started to paddle forward and came to a newly erected mesh fence and tried to get through. I couldn't. And tried again, couldn't. The mesh was too small. All mesh, all the grid was the same size. She tried and tried and couldn't get through, becoming more agitated. And eventually gave up, turned around and flew off with long, loping wing beats into the distance. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked on. The element of fire is a spark of life. It's also art. Art is a spark of life. Fire is a spark of art. I'm in Australia, in the Pilbara, camping beside a lake and watching the sun go down and the reflection of the lake, and you can't see it, but it's down here. Slowly it became dark, and I watched the moon come up, and some swans slowly paddling across the water, and the ripples of the swans reflected the moonlight, little silver lines picked out on the surface of the water. Occasionally a long hoot would come out and would carry across the surface of the water. But I slept, woke up in the morning, and climbed up the bluff up behind me, up onto the hills. I love Australia because it's open and empty, and you can walk and walk forever, and you can see where you're going. You can look at a whole range of hills and say, well, I'll follow this scarp up here, and I'll get onto the ridge, and I'll go around that ridge, and I'll come back down there, and it might take me a day, but I'll know where I am, and I'll come back, and I'll feel perfectly safe. But you're perfectly free, there's no track. Some people like tracks because it's a sense of security. I like to go away from tracks, to be free from tracks. Maybe there's a greater risk, but I'm an artist, and I need to make those breaks from tracks, to find new places, to find new feelings. A hawk flew off above me and soared out over the open space. My spirit went with it. Down below on the surface, I could see two wheel tracks meandering off into the distance. I had a Toyota Land Cruiser, and I thought, well, I'll follow that. Somewhere in that direction, the track seems to be going, maybe a couple of days away. I know there's a main road. Let's see if we can find that. This land of Australia, it's old. It's older than we can imagine. Think of a rock this size. I put that on the ground outside. How long will it take that rock to erode into sand? I can't imagine. It'll be a long time. Australia used to be a mountain range bigger than the Himalayas. It eroded into sand, the whole blooming lot. And it became this massive plain of sand, which had all once been mountain, layered and layered, and over millions and billions of years, this land moved around on the surface of the Earth in a very stable way. It didn't go over any hot spots, there were no earthquakes, no disruptions. It wasn't pushed up and convoluted, it was just layers of strata. And eventually it did a little bit, there was some ripples and some hills formed, and then new hills came up, and then they were eroded down, and they became the hills you see around the Pilbara and Alice Springs. It's so old, we can't imagine. And the people who live there have lived there longer than any other extant people apart from the Sand Bushmen of the Kalahari. And it's interesting that in recent years there's a new resurgence of art that the Aboriginal people have started to produce. It began in the 70s with men only painting relatively pictorial images of the dreaming, diagrams of how the ancestor moved across the land, places where they stopped and slept. And then, maybe 10, 15 years ago, women started painting in a quite different way. It was abstract, it was free, it had no pictorial references like the men's painting. Traditionally, the women used to make art on their bodies, either paintings on their bodies when they had women-only dancing sessions, gatherings together when they would dance with this painting on them, or they would go out into the bush along the sites of the dreaming, where the dreaming had happened, the places where the ancestors had stopped, and they'd cut their bodies with lines. They'd take the sacred fertile earth where the ancestor had stopped for sleep, or pee, or food, and they'd put this in the cut, and they'd make this cicatrice, these welts on their skin, which became decorative. So for the women, the body and the land and their art were totally the same thing. So when they started painting, it was the same. The canvas, the body became the canvas, the earth became the canvas, the earth became the pigment. To produce paintings like this, the beautiful paintings of this is Dorothy Napangadi, there is no rational thinking about this art. This is pure intuitive feeling. It's the feeling of the land coming up through the rhythm of the painting. They're almost in a trance. You watch videos of them painting, and it's absolutely rhythmic, trance-like. They drop the paint into the pot. Paint, dot, 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 dot. Paint, dot, 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 dot. There's no intrusive left brain sort of saying, what should we do, where should we go, what's all this about? It's just an intuitive feeling, and they're just following it wherever it wants to go. It almost leads them on. They know the land like no other. I've seen the patterns in the land that they paint on their paintings, either on the macro scale or the micro scale. They say their paintings are a cry of the land, saying, help, we're not being looked after, you need to look after us better. We're speaking on behalf of the land, not just in Australia, but in all the world. And the paintings have been recognised. They're in the main big galleries in New York, Paris, and London. I think they're one of the most exciting forms of contemporary art in the world today. At the end of the next day, I found a waterhole where maybe some Aboriginal had camped when they were out kangaroo hunting. I laid my swag out under an old gum tree and slept. The next day, I followed on the track out across the plains, and eventually came to a line of hills. The track seemed to sort of move into them with purpose. It seemed to be know where it's going, so I kept on following it over a small pass, then down into a beautiful lush valley full of gum trees and lovely dappled light. I stopped and lay under a tree for a while in the soft grass. There were a couple of cockatoos sitting on the branch above me. When one moved down the branch, the other would sidle up to it. And they'd go back to each other again and again, and they'd nuzzle and touch each other. And finally, when I got up to go, I sort of felt, I sensed one of them say to me, yes, human, this is beautiful, but your world isn't. I carried on and found the road, and headed back to civilization, which was a mining town, camp really. Nasty little tin sheds dotted the barren hillsides, and there was a bar, and in it there were a few tight-lipped guys hanging over the bar, eyeing me suspiciously. And outside a cage with 2 galahs in it. I'd seen these birds wheeling exuberantly through the trees earlier. They're out there. there's millions of them. Why shut them in a cage? It was absolutely immobile, indifferent, totally depressed, just staring out, didn't see me, didn't respond in any way. Mindless cruelty, why? And yes, cockatoo, you're right. So in our world today, we're dominated by what I call the masters of the universe, who live and operate on top of these big glass towers in the cities, in penthouse apartments and large boardrooms, in this cold world with no nature at all. And everyone's looking at all this world for us. How do we regain control? How do we bring empathy and nature back into this world so we start to care for things around us more? Look after the world, which needs looking after now there are so many of us. We desperately need beauty in this world. If we just have ugliness, if we just have throwaway cups, we don't care about things. If you buy your coffee in a plastic cup and you drink it, toss it into the rubbish bin. The rubbish is emptied into a trash bag. At the end of the day, it's put out on the street. In the night, the trucks come screaming through the city, bang, 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 and they put the rubbish in the back, and they drive off and they pile it up in the landfill. And all that rubbish leaches out into the earth, into the soil, into the water. 95% of tap water in America has plastic in it. Most other countries, it's 75–80%. That's the waste from our rubbish. It's in everything. It's totally in the oceans. There's not a pocket, corner of the ocean you can't siphon water out and find plastic in it floating around in it. If, on the other hand, you have objects which are beautiful, you'll care for them, you'll keep them, you'll love them, you'll look after them. I was in Cape Town, South Africa, doing a design workshop there. And Janine and Henny were running a project with making these, what they call tomichi, drinking mugs made out of this black clay. And they made 10,000 of them, and they asked people to squeeze them and then write, some of us wrote our names on the bottom. Then they took them away and fired them, and I didn't hear any more about it. But what they did with them was they took them out onto Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for all that long time. And they laid them out in the compound where he exercised every day. And this was his number, 4664. And these are the mugs laid out, the black ones, the ones without clays on them. And then 2 years later, someone walked into our showroom here in Doctor 2 with a cardboard box. Someone had given it to them, who had given it to them, who had given it to this person. And it came all the way from South Africa through this chain of separation, a friend of a friend of a friend, and it walked into my showroom. And inside were these 2 mugs. So every time I drink out of those mugs, I think of South Africa, I think of Nelson Mandela. This mug sat on the compound where he exercised. This is an incredibly special thing for me. The story of how it got to me and the story of how it was made. I will be desperate if I broke it or lost it. And I'll keep it as long as I live. That is beautiful. If we have ugliness in our homes, if we accept it in our homes, we'll accept it in our cities, we'll accept it in the destruction of our forests and the nature around us. It begins in home, it begins with us and our attitude. Beauty has become a commodity which you have to buy. You can't have it by right. The style tribe controls what is beautiful, and you can only be beautiful if you spend enough money and if you bought it. I want to take beauty away from the style tribe and bring it back into everyday life and say, yes, you can be beautiful, because you might be 70 years old, you might have a lined face, but you're just as beautiful as that model on the cover of Vogue. You don't have to spend money to be beautiful. We're starting very too slowly to build more responsible housing buildings, eco-housing, eco-buildings. But it's not enough to make it green and low carbon and all the rest of it, which we have to do, it's vitally important. But if we don't make those buildings beautiful, we won't then look after them. We won't keep them. protect them. But also, remember the Maori word of beauty. If those buildings are beautiful, they make us beautiful. The mugs make me beautiful. It's a two-way process. Beautiful things make us better. Ugly things make us worse. There's a movement to enshrine the rights of nature in law. It started in Bolivia and it's now here in New Zealand with the Wanganui River and the Uruwera Park. And at first I thought, wow, that's great. We're recognising the rights of nature. And I thought, no, hang on a minute. That's the wrong way around. That is the ultimate act of human hubris, to give nature our rights. To say, hey, you guys, if you don't like what we're doing to us, you can sue us. We depend on nature. We're part of nature. We don't give it rights. We have rights to use it, to be there. The air element is in our hearts and our lungs. It's love, it's breath, it's life. A couple of years ago, I trekked in the Himalayas with my two sons, Sam and William. This is Kambuchen, one of the last villages on the trek. We went up to the base camp of Kanchenjunga, Tibetan settlement, which is only used in the summer when there's no snow. I think all the early religions began in mountains, the sense of uplift that mountains give us, lifting our eyes, our gaze, our aspirations upwards, maybe inspired the early religions. And I think we go back to them for the same reasons, but we find different things. I think today, if there is a spirituality, it's expressed more as a form of animism, a belief in the life, the structures of life, the forces of nature. I think this is what we're talking about now today with religion. After walking for nearly 3 weeks, we were coming out down the valley. We took a side trip, 2,000 meters up the side of the valley onto a ridge. And this ridge was a pilgrim route to a temple to Devi up on a peak with an amazing view around it of all the mountains in the area. We were going to go up there and see the sunrise on this peak. We stayed in the village of Fedi on the ridge, along with a whole lot of other pilgrims. These are now Hindus, we're back down in the world of Hindus. This family, with his 3 children, were heading up there with a goat to sacrifice for some worldly wish for the family, maybe for passing exams, or maybe that the next child would be a boy. We got up early in the morning in the dark. As we were dressing, we shared our dreams. All 3 of us had dreamed of the goat. It had been bleating in the night. Its noise, its plaintive calls, it echoed into our dreams, either awake or asleep. All 3 of us, in some way or other, awake or asleep, dreamed of releasing it, setting it free from its inevitable demise. It was a punishing climb up steep stone steps in the dark with hundreds of other pilgrims bustling along with us. It was hard going, but we got there just in time to see the sun come up and pick out the peaks around us, Kanchenjunga over to the left. I stood on the top, looking down at the compound below us, sort of interested in this incredible contrast between the pure, austere beauty of the mountains and this kind of messy, bustling activity that was going on down below. All these offerings, all these melted wax and incense sticks and things going on. And suddenly in the middle of this, I saw something happen. I saw my son William. He got hold of the goat and its string, and he was leading it out of the compound. Bid for freedom. At the last minute at the gate, our guide headed him off, grabbed its string, and took it back to its inevitable fate on the block. Over our short history through the wedges of separation, we've come to think of ourselves as above nature. We've tamed animals and plants and made them the way we want them. This sense of separation gave us the impression that the other, that nature, was somehow stable and unaffected by us. Now we know we are causing climate change. We're in the Anthropocene era, the era when humans affect nature. But we know we are causing it, but we can't control it. We realise that we are still part of nature because of that. Like it or not, we're still part of nature, and we depend faithfully on nature for our fresh air, our clean water, and our food. Over the years, science sort of helped us separate from nature by breaking it up like the reductionists, by controlling it, by learning about it. But then, ironically, more recently, it's done the opposite, because it started to show that actually we are totally a part of nature. 50% of the genes and the DNA in our body and the cells in our body are not ours, they're other creatures. Half of our bodies are other creatures, like the microbes in our gut that we need to digest the food. We're dependent on all these creatures. We're not separate from nature. We are a part of nature. And then in the macro scale, looking out into the world, into the universe, we realize how vast the universe is, how insignificant we are. Endless universe that goes on forever. There's bound to be other life forms out there. We are nothing compared to that. We'll be here and gone in no time. So science has actually brought us back, reconnected us to nature in an ironic way. Life on this planet is a miracle whichever way you look at it. We will only avert our current path to self-destruction if we accept the beauty of life and that we are all equally a part of nature with all living things. Instead of trying to control nature, we should let go and revel in its beauty. In 2005, I went down to Antarctica as one of the artists, the visiting artists. We were based in Scott Base on the shores of the McMurdo Sound. The air's still frozen over. Across on the other side, you can see the Transantarctic Mountains, 4,000 meters high. Behind that, the eastern ice cap, several kilometers deep in places, high, cold. And out of that ice cap, cold air sinks down through the valleys of the Transantarctic Mountains, scouring out all the moisture to create the dry valleys, where there is no snow, there is no ice. The size of the mountains is vast. Looking across from McMurdo Sound in the incredibly clear air, they look so close, and then suddenly the tops get clear from the clouds and you see them far away. We flew in a helicopter across the Kirtlex Glacier, across the bottom of McMurdo Sound, over to the dry valleys. These incredibly beautiful melt pools of water on the surface of the glacier, with patches of volcanic dust blown down from the volcanoes around. Mounds of frozen ice rising up in the middle. An otherworldly land, like no other I'd ever seen before. Beauty beyond comparison. We flew around looking for a place to land. A few glaciers snaked out through the passes of the mountains and came down into the dry valleys and petered out like white dragons slumped on the ground. The surface was like a Neolithic farm site, with walls, it seemed for first, broken up into these strange polyhedra. We were told it was something to do with freezing and thawing, but I never really understood it. And I'm quite glad. I like it to be a mystery. I like nature not to be explained, not to be rational. When you look up close at those lines on the ground, this is what they look like. An artist has placed these stones in lines along the edge. In this dry valley, maybe a handful of scientists have ever been here before. The cold, dry ranges come sweeping down, and it's the only thing that rules. There is no water. Our lands are ruled by water. They scour out valleys, erode the land. Here the land is eroded by wind. It eddies and trickles around these rocks, and the grit strewn in the wind scours out the rocks and creating these beautiful carvings which are called ventifacts. The rules of nature just don't apply. Big rocks sit on medium rocks, sit on little rocks. And way up several miles from the frozen sea, we found the remains of seals. Maybe, I think they've done tests on them, some are 1,000, 1,300 years old. Because the air is so dry, it's mummified them. There they remain. An attenuated hand, remains of a flipper. We walked up to the snout of the glacier. You can see a figure on the right there. A little trickle of water, summer melt was coming out of it. It was dirty, messy, tumbling, retreating. And then we separated. And I climbed up onto a ridge, went back along the ridge. And if all I'd ever wanted was empty land to wander over, this was the walk of a lifetime. Maybe no one had ever been here before. Maybe I was the first Homo sapiens to walk on these rocks, on this land. In the distance, Mount Erebus on Ross Island. It was like tabula rasa. It was like the world was empty. It was like there was no apple, there was no garden. It was a new beginning. In the cold, searing blue light of Antarctica, I felt anything was possible. I felt like the little baby at the end of 2001: Space Odyssey, looking down on a beautiful blue.